Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, company screwed up when they took my company car. The second story, mom boss refused to pay me money, but we have a contract so I could sue her. The third story, guy wanted to get a free product, but I didn't let him do it. The first story, take away my company car. I'll just fly everywhere. First, this isn't the company I work for, but a company that services the same customers, and I interact quite often with their sales team. For a little backstory, this job is a sales job, where you represent a manufacturer and travel around a territory calling on customers that sell your products. The territory is generally at least 2 states and averages 30,000 miles on the road per year, if not more. The company in question was recently acquired by a new ownership group that has a reputation for buying stagnant businesses, trimming down every possible expense they think is excessive, and selling it once it looks profitable, even though the company is barely functioning because of all the cuts. After the acquisition, the new ownership group decided that the sales rep's company cars were one of those excessive expenses. They were told to buy their own cars, and they'd be given a monthly allowance to pay for the vehicle. There's several problems. They drove at least 30,000 miles a year, so no matter what kind of car they bought, the car would depreciate in value very quickly, and they would likely need to trade it in a few years before it were paid off. Also, if they wanted to use exactly what their allowance would allow for a car, they'd likely be buying a 10 to 15-year-old beater, and it still wouldn't cover fuel and insurance. The sales reps were used to getting a new car every 2 to 3 years. It's important in this line of work to have a presentable car, because it's often used to take our customers around the market. For example, my company has a very strict policy about keeping the vehicles clean, and will pay to repair any cracks in the windshield or dents in the car immediately, because we're a reflection of the company when meeting with our customers. It's just all around a situation where they're getting screwed over and would be spending their own money on something their old company used to cover, and it's essential to their job. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. This new company didn't have a policy on flights. There was no rule on how far the destination needed to be before they were allowed to book a flight. Also, they were allowed to rent a car if they flew to a destination. Finally, their company card approval system didn't have very good checks and balances because of the acquisition. Basically, all expenses were sent to an understaffed department. Some were laid off during the acquisition, so they'd approve all expenses, as long as the receipt was provided. So now the sales reps are buying ridiculously expensive super regional flights and just renting a car at the airport. One of the reps I sometimes bump into had just flown from Kansas City, MO to Wichita, Kansas, which is 2.5 to 3 hours away on the interstate. He then rented a car and drove back to KC to make sales calls for 2 weeks. He ended up back in Wichita, making sales calls the whole way, and flew back to Kansas City to start the weekend. He'd been doing this every week for months. So was the rest of their sales force. He told me that his average daily travel expense was $50 more than the monthly allowance they gave them to buy a car. Apparently, the new company just caught on towards the end of the year, and their year-end travel expenses for them are massive. Since the discovery, there's been multiple meetings, virtual town halls, and a ton of emails with new policies and procedures for taking flights and submitting expenses. The biggest win for them, though, is that at the beginning of this year, they all got company cars again. Oh yeah, that happens a lot. When everything is fine at first and then some new manager or supervisor comes in and wants to try something that you know won't work, doesn't listen to you, says, well, let's try it my way, and they end up paying more for something you already told them. Well, they got what was supposed to happen. The company my sister works for makes her travel a lot. She rents a car and the person who makes the reservation picks an airport that's a good 45 minutes away from where my daughter lives. When there's no one to pick up her car, she parks it in the airport parking lot and charges $140 to $150 to park it. I sometimes ask her why she doesn't ask to reserve her car at the local market, which is 10 minutes from her house. She hasn't explained why. It's probably part of some malicious compliance thing. The next story is Contract Flex. In 2018, big changes happened for me. I got my AA, Associate of Arts degree, and was accepted into a new college to get my BA, Bachelor of Arts degree. Spoiler alert, I got my BA. This school change meant I had to leave my current job and get a new one. It's a commuter school. I live near it, but keeping the job didn't make sense. I also had a 5-week trip abroad planned over the summer to celebrate getting my AA, first in family. Prior to this trip, I interviewed with jobs and was very direct as to what I was looking for. None of my interviewees got back to me before my trip. That sucked, but whatever. I had a fallback plan. Toward the end of my trip, a few got back to me. I started emailing negotiations with them and eventually made my choice. My first red flag could have been avoided by sending over a digital contract to be signed. We agreed that I'd start the job 2 weeks before school started, after school nanny. They changed their mind last minute and said I'd start the day school starts. I, at the time, had 11 years experience in this field. Time with the kids before school started was important. Build a relationship before being a homework drill sergeant. The job goes, the mom boss, MB, is not warm, and I'm not bonding with the kids, as she comes home each and every day, especially when I planned a fun trip or project. No big deal. I have guaranteed hours, so I'm still getting paid. Well, the semester for me is almost over and I have to sign up for next semester's classes. Problem. There isn't a single class schedule I could make that would have me available all 5 days a week after school. I inform MB. She says they could figure out the other days. I ask her if she could keep her ears open for the other 2 days. She agrees. Finding a 2-day-a-week morning nanny job is like finding a needle in a haystack. My contract states I have to give 6 weeks notice to quit, and vice versa. Important detail for later. I let MB know my hunt isn't going smoothly. She suggests I do gig work or work customer service. I kindly reply, gig work is unpredictable income, and I cannot afford to live off the part-time wage of customer service. My parents do not support me. I do not live at home, and am an older college student. Eventually, I have to give my 6 weeks notice, as while looking to make her job work, I found another job. Worked with my new schedule, more pay, better location. After I gave notice, a holiday break came. I was given time off as grandparents came to town. No big deal. Remember, my contract has guaranteed hours. I then go back to work, ask for my pay. MB, no, you didn't work. Me, it's in the contract. I have guaranteed hours. MB, no, you broke the contract by quoting. Me, I'm working within the contract. I gave 6 weeks as you wanted and not the standard 4 weeks. Breaking the contract would be me giving you less than 6 weeks. MB, you didn't work. I'm not paying you. Me, that would be you breaking the contract. Pull contract out, point out guaranteed hours, the schedule, and where it says we continue to work through notice period. MB says some choice words and sticks to it. Me, it sounds like you knowingly gave me 2 weeks off with no intent to pay. That's breaking the contract. Giving notice is not. MB argues about that. Me, it appears the contract is void. It also says if a breach in contract happens on your behalf, I'm going to be paid my full salary for 6 weeks and not return to work. I'm going to be nice and give you one last chance to think about your choices. Pay me for the 2 weeks and I finish out the remainder of the 6 weeks, or you magically don't have a nanny show up because you voided the contract, and I flex my legal rights to force you to pay up. MB's jaw drops. Chooses to pay me, but as she does so, calls me a heartless bee and some other names. Me, really? Name calling? It says here under cause that it's a hostile work environment, and I can just leave and get the full 6 weeks pay. MB stuttering. I was then paid the 2 weeks in question, paid 1 week bonus to not leave her in a jam, worked 1 week after that conversation before she found my replacement, and let me go with the remainder of my notice period paid in full. Contracts are the best. Edit. Explaining guaranteed hours. Also guaranteed hours. If the contract says 3.5 hours per day Monday to Friday for a total of 17.5 hours a week, that means if the employer chooses to not have me work that day or week, I'm still paid. If I choose not to work, I'm not paid. The reason for quarantined hours is, I, the employee, have made that time slot for them, the employer. They, the employer, needs me to be available all the time for those hours, so they promise to pay me each week for all those hours, regardless if they had me work them or not. This is so that I, the employee, keep those hours available for the employer always. This woman wanted to deceive you. I think if you kept quiet and didn't answer her, she wouldn't pay you. But good for you for writing the contract and proving your case. Most likely she did not read the contract at all, and so she charged you that she would not pay. Some people seem to think contracts are supposed to protect them and not both parties. Surprise, no. If you work with children, be prepared for the fact that their parents can be awful. And it doesn't matter what field you work in, there are lousy people everywhere. I work as a nanny. The kids are good. They're not naughty and they listen to me, but their parents are hell. I once asked to be let out an hour early because my grandmother was in the hospital. I understand that I work certain hours, but it was an emergency. The parents refused to let me go and told me to work my own hours. I waited for another hour, gave them their children, and left. I never went back to that house again. My family was more important. The last story is, want to scam my story by abusing the scan law? 2 can play that game. Michigan has a law in its books that protects customers from being charged more than an item is priced due to a scanning error. If a customer is overcharged, they're entitled to 10 times the difference, or $5, whichever is less on top of the difference. So if a customer is charged $5 for an item priced $4, they get $1 back plus another $5. The fee is to basically compensate the customer for the time and expense at having to come back to the store to get a refund and such. Our pricing and sales system sometimes can get goofed up by certain things. The most common thing is a sale on an item is being extended into the next month. That setup will wipe out the current month's sale price and cause an overcharge. Luckily, it's only on a few brands, so we can quickly discover it and correct it. And I would say 95% of our customers realize things like this happen and will come back. Only ask for the adjustment, and we have a good laugh. But we have one customer, Charles, who likes to game the system. He will deliberately seek out these errors, and then try to claim the scan law to get money. He earned a permanent place on my SH list because he took advantage of me, another manager, and one of my favorite employees to get a $15 item for $5. Every time I've seen him in the store, he's always tried this crap. I usually try to avoid him because he may anger me with his comments, to the point I will mention his aforementioned scam. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I could not avoid having to ring this guy up. Here's where the malicious compliance came in. A month prior, I had to look up the scan law because of a different customer's irate wife calling me and yelling that we did not just hand her husband $5. You have to claim the law. He did not. But I later discovered he was not eligible for it anyways. I also took note that anything the cashier manually types in is also not eligible. I tucked that little piece of information away. So when this guy came through my checkout, I made up some excuse about the scanner being twitchy, and I proceeded to hand type in every single UPC that this guy had, and he had at least 20 to 30 items. I made sure that I moved every item well over the scanner so that it did not register any item. So this guy's order was 100% manual. I then asked him, does everything look correct? As one of the other managers advised everyone to do if they deal with him. He said yes, and then he paid. He was at the service desk not even a minute later, talking to one of the senior managers. I got closer so I could eavesdrop, hoping he was pointing out to her that I'd overcharged him for several items, and how he wanted $5 for every single one. I was sad to find out he was actually referring to another receipt. After he left, I told the senior manager what I had done, and how I really wanted to chime in and tell him, well, unfortunately, you're not entitled to anything but the difference, seeing as no scanning was involved. The senior manager just about pulled a muscle, she was laughing so hard, but my tip was given to all cashiers. I've only seen him in the store once since then. I hope to see him a lot less. Yes, this guy's crafty, but you got him good. Apparently, he realized that his scam wouldn't work in this store anymore, but he hoped to try one more time. He probably didn't succeed and never came back. In general, if your manager agrees that this guy is more trouble than good, you can deny him service and ban him from the store. And also, if your systems are constantly screwing up and failing to do their job, maybe you should upgrade or change them. I used to work in retail. Every Saturday, a lady would come in and watch the price of chicken, expecting a quick discount. We were very good at predicting the amount of chicken we needed to make, so we rarely had to discount prices. Then it got annoying when she started asking us when we were going to do it. I understand that she wants to buy discount chicken, but it's not that simple, lady. I know everyone likes to haggle, but go do your time with something else. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and have a good day.